South Africa will have to box clever if it wants to deal with its debt. The finance minister delivers his budget on Wednesday. Tito Mboweni undoubtedly facing some heavyweight problems, but it seems debt is one of the biggest. So let's get you ready for that budget, tell you what you can expect. Devan, Murugan and Marillier will be looking ahead for us. Devan, good afternoon. So as we know, government struggling to contain its debt. We know that it's been battling. There's trouble. There's been trouble not even on the horizon, behind us, on top of us, all of that for the past couple of years. And of course, COVID making it even worse for us.
Absolutely. And three big focal points of the budget on Wednesday. One, is the finance minister able to rein in expenditure? How he is going to demonstrate growth in the economy to generate taxes. And of course, rating agencies will be focused on how he handles or stabilize debt. That's where I bring in Marillier. It's a huge, colossal problem, Michael, and I think you've got an interesting analogy with boxing in terms of his challenge to get debt under control.
Yeah, he would like to hit back in a big way in terms of dealing with this debt, Devan, but I'm afraid that may not be as simple as it sounds, because this has been a problem for a long time. Let's focus on the numbers very, very quickly, and we'll take you back about 5 years in terms of our debt-to-GDP figures, Devan. Debt-to-GDP, in other words, what is the percentage of our debt in terms of the overall size of our economy? So in 2016, Devan, we were looking at 51%. There were headlines about that. People were getting excited about the fact that we had breached 50%. But take a look at the trend ever since. I mean, in 2018, 2019, almost 60%. The following year, 63%. And that massive spike, which the finance minister announced in October last year, South Africa is sitting at 82% debt to GDP. Of course, part of that is a result of the COVID-19 crisis. But let's focus on the forecast for the next few years, and you'll see that this is a problem that isn't going away anytime soon. The forecast for the next financial year, Devan, it's going to climb to 86%, then 90%, then even higher, climbing by several percent, in fact 93% to GDP. Crazy. And then, Devan, they expect it to level out at about 95%. That should be in around 2025, 2026. So just to put that in perspective, 95%, that means that our debt levels are almost the same size as our entire economy, Dev.
But even then, that will only take place if we put some structures or implementation policies in place that will limit us borrowing excessive amounts of money. Now, it seems frightening for South Africa, and I think it is, but countries like the United States and other first world countries have debt-to-GDP figures like this. But here's the difference, Michael.
Yep.
The thing is, the interest rate that the United States, for example, will pay on the money they borrow sits at about 1%. Our 10-year bonds in South Africa is 8.75%. So there we've got to think about debt servicing costs. We are paying the interest. That's escalating. It's nothing like the United States, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Our credit card is a little bit more expensive. So let's focus on that very quickly, Devan. If you take R1 that is generated for the main budget in South Africa, Dev, you're going to lose 21 cents paying the interest on those loans. So this debt servicing costs 21 cents. So effectively, Devan, you're left with 79 cents to actually pump into your budget. That really is the big challenge with South Africa. It's all very well having all of this debt, but then you've got to pay the debt back, plus you have to pay the interest. So just think about that. For every R1 that we should have going towards our budget, we actually really have just 79 cents, Devan.
Yeah, it's a colossal problem. Part of the reason why your interest rate is so high, Marillier, is because commentators will tell you there's a growth credibility problem in South Africa, which the United States, for example, doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So if you walk into a bank, for example, they would look at your stats and tell you, well, that's the interest rate you get. But I think also very important is this whole element between growing the economy and using that growth to settle debt. Let's listen to what ABSA economist Mamakete Lejani says about growth and its ability to settle debt.
The ability to service the debt is measured on the amount of revenue that you have, because after all, you need to earn the cash to pay the debt, right? So the two ways to solve the debt issue is either you actually curb the rate at which you're accumulating debt so that it becomes more affordable, or you earn more revenue. And I think when we speak about the debt issue, we always talk about growth as a separate issue. There's growth and then there's debt. They're actually the same thing. So essentially, the most sustainable way to get out of debt is to grow your way out of it.
And Michael Marillier, if you can't grow the economy, it makes sense that economic activity is low. When that's low, you can't generate taxes, because taxes allows you to fill that coffer pot. And we want to know how we're doing on that front.
Yeah, let's focus on that very quickly, Devan. I'm going to focus very quickly on VAT collections. What you're seeing there is the 2019 graph effectively tracking our VAT collection. So that's the tax that we pay every time we buy something. And that red line that you've seen there, Devan, reflects 2020, the first 9 months of 2020. And you can see, Devan, the effect that lockdown and the pandemic actually had. Take a look at that massive dip in terms of that red line. Now let's focus on PAYE collections. So these are really personal income tax that would also reflect the unemployment problems in South Africa. Again, there's the 2019 line, Devan, and take a look at that incredible beating that we took in the first 9 months of 2020. Again, a big dip in terms of PAYE. So that really has been a big concern. We just haven't been generating the kind of tax volumes that we really need to in order to fund our budget in the first place.
There is a silver lining, one would say. We've had a huge disaster with a revenue that I thought was predicted about 300 billion rand short.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we had November and December. Something happened. We collected more than we had thought. So we're still in a shortfall.
Yeah.
But I think we 100 billion rand more or thereabout than we thought we would collect.
Yeah. So PricewaterhouseCoopers actually came out with an assessment of it. It looks like that shortfall will be smaller than we thought, partly because of a strong performance by the mining sector, Devan. We've also seen VAT collections increase. In fact, in November, December, they were higher than the previous year, those same months in 2019. So let's focus on that very quickly. What does all of this mean in terms of your bottom line? Well, Treasury said in October last year that we may have to take tax hikes of 5 billion rand this year, Devan. Now, that sounds catastrophic for the average household. But as we bring up our next graphic, Devan, as I mentioned, PricewaterhouseCoopers came out with that report just a few weeks ago, saying that that shortfall for the last year will probably be smaller than initially thought. Plus, it looks like tax revenue could be 52 billion rand higher than the forecast in the coming year. So there's good news in terms of 2020 and perhaps some good news in terms of 2021. In other words, 52 billion rand higher than Treasury was expecting for this year that is ahead of us. So that could offer a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, Devan.
Nevertheless, Wednesday comes, we're still going to have a tax revenue shortfall. How money is spent and where it goes, into the sort of finance system will be closely watched. That 100 billion rand that they didn't expect, what do we use it for? Do we pay public sector wages? Do we put it into financing infrastructure? Or is it just consumption all the time, Yuveka? That's the big question that I'm sure will be answered on Wednesday.